me? Oh, very good. I love this Bloomberg labeled water. I was looking for Bloomberg beer out there and I couldn't find it. Maybe next time, Matt. Can you? Please. Is this on? No. All right, let me get a clicker and we'll get started. So I'm the CEO and founder of a company called CrowdComputing Systems. And today we'll talk I want to talk a little bit about something different than just pure technology, and it's going to be about crowd computing. So this is the quote from Albert Einstein that actually drove us to build this company, right? And I know a lot of technology folks, including myself, are really looking towards computer science solutions for everything, but really thinking about combining human mind and technology into one, drove us to really sort of conceive and build out a platform that combines really best of breed artificial intelligence and human mind in order to process data. So this is really sort of an inspiration for us to evolve and to further build out the platform. So let's talk about where do you get, and people talk about crowdsourcing, right? So where do you get people to actually help you process this data? And when we talk about big data, we talk about all of this stuff. And if you want to apply human mind to at least portion or part of processing this data, right? And we'll go through some concrete examples a little bit later on. Where do you get these people? Most people have jobs. Well, you have something that is called cognitive surplus out there. And it's really something that people used to spend watching television. It's about 200 billion hours a year is spent by adults watching television right here. And this little dot right here, 100 million hours, is what it took to create Wikipedia by people, by crowdsourcing. So about 10 years ago or so, the tide started shifting from something that is called passive entertainment, like television, radio, to something that is called more engaged and active entertainment, which is Facebooks, YouTubes, people contributing, people using their mobile devices to actually communicate with the world and really contribute things. This is where crowdsourcing came from. When you think about the potential of this, and this is just 200 billion hours watching television, when you think about the potential of people donating 5, 10, 15 minutes of their time to do something, and sometimes they're donating that 15 minutes of their time to do something stupid, like post a tweet or Facebook post or LOL cats or whatever. If they can donate a little bit of their time to be productive, and everybody's connected now, third world countries, every place, you can harvest trillions and trillions of spare man hours to actually help you with very useful tasks. And that is what people call crowdsourcing. It's really what is also known as cognitive surplus. So this is how. So you have been part of this movement as well. Something that's called Recapture out there. And you guys have all seen these funny little windows, right? They ask you to enter some letters. What it is the Recapture Project is one of the biggest book digitizing efforts out there that is ran by Google. And what they've done is they've scanned all these old articles and publications, and some of the scanned print was not distinguishable by a computer, right? So the OCR records were not distinguishable. So what they've done is through this project Recapture, they asked people before logging into your favorite site to validate that you're human. And you actually have to type in 2 words. One word is actually the scan type from an OCR record. The other one is just a validation word. So this simple task actually in 6 to 8 months have helped to digitize, I think, over 10 to 20 years of publications. And you guys have all participated in this application of cognitive surplus. Essentially, it takes you less than 10 seconds to do it, but you've contributed to a much, much larger problem. And this is a very simple application of what is called crowdsourcing or cognitive surplus. But there are challenges, right? If you wanted to really harness what is called cognitive surplus, which is trillions of hours available of humans being able to do this digital work, it's very interesting. So people look at Mechanical Turk, other crowdsourcing platforms, or just people donating this time, they think it's really cool. It's really cool idea. I can take my data and actually run it through this huge crowd of people. They can sort of look at it. They can do very interesting analysis on it. They can categorize things and so forth and so on. But when rubber hits the road, what is really the biggest problem when you deal with this very large distributed workforce, essentially, right, that lives in other countries that is not committed to you, right? You don't employ these people. Sometimes you don't pay anything at all. They could be gamers that are doing these tasks within their game. There could be people that are getting maybe a penny per task on Mechanical Turk. How do you actually make sure that the output that they're providing for you is high quality, right? So if you give them garbage, if you give them data and they give you garbage back, it's not a really useful exercise, even if it's free, right? So quality is one of the major issues that you deal with when you're trying to harness cognitive surplus for large data processes. And then if you wanted to do something more complex than just digitize one word, right, you need to sort of have a process that is multi-step. So creating more complex business processes using cognitive surplus, much like you do right now with your employees or with an outsourcer, is another challenge. And then things like scalability, cost, and really how do you adapt this within your organization, or how do you use it, right? How do you tap into this cognitive surplus if you have a data project and you want to run a turnkey, for instance? So this is where artificial intelligence comes in. So actually, we found that AI application is actually very good when it comes to managing these very large distributed crowds. So AI can learn behavioral patterns. It can look at multiple data points about how a human being is performing a task. It can look at statistics and can make a very exact or very accurate prediction if somebody's going to give you the right kind of data. It can look at your statistics as for how long you're spending on the task, and about 60 to 90 data points. It can also compare you to your peers. It can test you. It can do a lot of things which normally you would try to tackle with human managers, right? But again, because you're dealing with somebody donating 5, 10 an hour of their time, and they're located all over the place, it really becomes very challenging to do it on your own. So artificial intelligence, my boss is a robot, is actually a very good way to be able to harness this cognitive surplus in order to do something useful. So we spent quite a long time training our AI algorithms. So here's a more concrete example. And the use case here for us was, how do you harness a lot of this unstructured data which is out there in social media to predict or to help a big brand, a big consumer brand, make enhancements to their products. Essentially, what are the people out there in the social media, on the blogs, what are they saying, and how can they help? How can what they're saying help us in enhancing the products, right? So shampoos, consumer brand. The way they used to do it before, they would get a panel, right? You would just get a panel, go to these representative consumers and ask them what can be done in order to enhance my products. This is not a very good sort of approach, right? It's not a very exact approach. The truth is that within the social media, you already have people talking about your products, talking about your brand. It's just their voices need to be isolated from all this other garbage that is out there, like spam and everything else. And if you think about Twitters, Facebooks, you think about sort of boards and blogs, there's a wealth of information that is out there. Unfortunately, this wealth of information can be 100% processed by machines. It needs human eye to distinguish, for instance, between spam or between sarcasm and whatnot. But what AI can do, it can actually not only manage people during this process, but also it can learn from people's output and essentially take over some of the work as well. So as you can see, this is basically a funnel that takes in all of this sort of messy, unstructured social media data and runs it through a process that is enhanced with crowdsourcing and artificial intelligence. And out, on the other end, comes out these gold nuggets that we're looking for, actual recommendations by people, right? And then the further can be analyzed in order to make either predictions about your brand, popularity, predictions about your products, anything you want, right? So it serves as a huge, sort of very smart funnel for unstructured data. And this is just one application of cognitive surplus, obviously. But it's a very interesting one. So who are the customers? Who's actually using it? It's surprisingly that a lot of big brands have very sort of this latent demand for this turnkey business process or big data processing that involves human beings. And human involvement can be 20% or 30% of the process. The rest can be done by artificial intelligence. But it's really sort of human and AI combined solution is something that a lot of brands were looking for, or a lot of sort of customers were looking for, because, again, having tried to process everything with technology for the last 20 to 30 years, we're starting to understand that the human brain is very, very powerful, and we definitely need to augment, especially in the big data space, some of this processing with sort of human understanding. So my contact info, we have a lot more about crowd computing space in the white paper that we give away. It's crowdcomputingsystems.com, CCS_white paper. This really talks about this whole space we're defining, which is called crowd computing, which is essentially human and artificial intelligence combined in order to process data. So that is it.
Thank you very much. Sit down. Questions, thoughts, comments? One over there.
So what sort of fault-tolerant style techniques do you do for the crowdsourcing?
It's a good question. So essentially, you can think about it as a combination of multiple things, right? So there's predictive analytics that you look at maybe 60 to 90 data points about past and present performance of a worker, and you can make a prediction about their quality of the work that they're doing using a specific use case, right? So somebody can be very good at categorizing photographs or digital content, but maybe very bad at invoice processing or whatever, looking at data. Other things that you can use is also things like goal sets, essentially giving them questions that you know the answers to in order to look at their quality with the known, so testing. Plurality is another one, and there's quite a few more. So these are like broad categories within each single one. So that is the reason why you actually want to use artificial intelligence and machine learning in order to do that, because you're continuously sort of understanding new techniques. And this is one of the most interesting projects I work with, because in the software sort of testing cycle, it's pretty easy, right? You write the software, you test it. Here, you actually need to test it with human beings and, and sort of take psychology into consideration. So that's the interesting part, I think. It's
on the clients that you showed before, can you give an example of an insight that came out of the process that you offered versus what was there before?
Right. And you have to keep in mind that the processes vary. In social media example, the very simplest one is sentiment about my brand. Essentially, there's tons of social media out there. What are the people really saying about Bank of America? So you can get high-level analytics on platforms like Radian6, which just tells me, look, my Twitter is spiking or my Facebook posts are spiking. But what are people really saying? Is this spam? Are people really negative, positive? So in order to dive deep into this and understand at a very fine-grained level what people are saying about my brand, you need to apply a combination of human and artificial intelligence, right? Because natural language processing engine will not tell you very exactly if somebody's applying sarcasm, right? So I went to Bank of America, opened an account, and I got a toaster. Great. This is not a positive sentiment. This is actually sarcasm. So in order for a brand to really understand sentiment, they need to be able to apply this technology. And that's sort of the simplest case scenario, right?
One more. Can you tell us, are you recruiting? Are you fundraising? Any?
Yeah, we're actually raising another round. We're raising a B round. We just, a year ago, we raised a round with RTP Ventures and Greycroft. And essentially, we're primarily a technology company. We didn't have much of a business development organization, so about 40 people just building away at the platform. And now we probably need to double in size, very quickly because there's a lot of uptake. Us being a platform, there's a lot of different use cases that customers sort of can think about by creating these processes. So we're really trying to grow really fast, trying to raise another round now.
And you will be recruiting after you raise a round, presumably?
We will be recruiting now, and because the round is about...
What are you looking for?
So engineers, and more engineers, and we're local to
Join
New York
the club.
City. Yeah, so that Matt is, we talk.
I don't think you want my coding skills.
No. QA. We use you for QA.
I can do customer service.
Yeah. All right.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. One last one, and then we'll move on to the next.
Speaking of eating your own dog food, have you considered crowdsourcing your funding?
Lead generation we do that for. So we do lead gen through crowdsourcing. So we actually pull up profiles from LinkedIn and all this other stuff.
Okay, cool.
But next time.
Great. Thank you very much, Max.
Thank you. Cheers.